If you'd stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent prayer. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you'll remain standing for a moment of silent prayer, and please remember the Weeks family. The first item on the agenda are public comments. You can comment on any item on the agenda, or you're welcome to comment at this time. We just need your name and address, and just remember the person who does the minutes, they're not in the room. So speak to the microphone, and they should be on. We have new mics, so. Yes.
My name is Arloa Kaiser. I live at 1421 Melvin Street, and in the Sunday paper, they have now passed this law where you can go a lot faster, and the newspaper stated that for just signage of this 600 miles of road, it's going to cost $494,000 for signage. Is our government so stupid that they do not realize speed causes accidents, and I see you, Larry, that speed causes accidents? Our roads are in such rotten condition. We used to have decent roads, that they're spending that kind of money for signage. It is not just the state government. It's our lovely, what's his name, Ron, for the county, Townsend. Roy Townsend, he had to put up signs to tell us that our tax dollars fix the certain roads. Why waste money? Everybody says, oh, we don't have money, we don't have money. We must sure as heck have money, and it's my money they're wasting on these type of things. Let's fix the roads so you do actually have less accidents. Washtenaw is terrible. So many roads, bridges. Let's spend the money where it's needed, not on foolish stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sydney. I reside at 720 Lowell Street. Really quick, I would just like to get some audience participation and have everybody that's in opposition to Nexus just raise their hands really quick. Okay, so our position hasn't really changed on this issue, so I would just urge you to remain firm on your decision as well, being in the best interest of our community and being representatives of our community. That's what we want, so thank you.
Hi, I'm Shauna McNally. Do we say our address here? Or? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like a little baby.
Oh, I'm okay. I'll be fine. Yeah. Well, just to follow the comment that was just made, that's why we came.
Can you say your name again for the person who does the minutes?
Oh,
they're not in the room, so
okay.
it's really helpful if
Shauna McNally. Okay. I know that it was voted on before and that we decided to not pass the easements for Nexus, and we wanted to stand strong. And I just came to urge that we know from a show of hands right here how the community feels, and I hope that you guys stay strong. I hope the decision's a unanimous one, quite frankly, because if we're dealing with political opposition, you know, a MDEQ that's, you know, letting lead in the water in Flint. You know, you guys know they're trying to go under the Willow Run plant without further inspections, et cetera, et cetera. Like, these are not trustworthy plans. And if we don't stand strong together, you know, it gives loopholes for them to get in. You know, we have to fight it as a group. Washtenaw County stood against it. Ypsilanti Township, Augusta Township did. You know, so that's all we want to encourage, that we stay united. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Come here.
She wants to talk. Yes?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tatiana Goodwin, and I live at 730 Cayuga, and I've been in the West Willow neighborhood for a good quarter century. I'm sure, we've met and we've discussed for quite some time, and I'm glad to have you representing us. We've had you for a good long time. I'm here again in opposition to the Nexus pipeline. It certainly has just been railroaded through with a lot of happy fan dancing about how great it is and how wonderful for a community that it's going to rip apart. I have not seen anything yet to demonstrate that this is even needed, except to line pockets of CEOs. And I don't dress like a CEO. My clothes come from Value World. So while I'm not making the money off of it, no one here is making the money off of it. We're simply going to see our property values destroyed. Or we can become the next Flint, or North Dakota Pipeline, or Deepwater. And I'd really rather not see this neighborhood in the headlines for that sort of corporate greed. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Hello, my name is Nick Leja. I live at 30973 Pendleton in New Hudson, Michigan. And I came here today. I'm here with my mom, and we're looking at potentially opening up a new retail business in Ypsilanti Township. It's a video game, movie, and electronics store. We're looking at the center with where Walmart is on Ellsworth. And when we went to the Planning Commission, they mentioned that there was an ordinance that prevented secondhand merchants from going into that plaza due to the way that it was zoned. We're very similar to a GameStop in that while we do sell new, we also do sell used products as well. We differ from them in that we also do movies like DVD and Blu-ray movies and TV series. We also do the old school video games for the Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Atari, things like that. We're very, very much a family-friendly oriented business. We do have a couple other locations in the Detroit area. We create usually 15 to 20 jobs per location. And in talking with the Planning Commission, we spoke with Chris, and he recommended that we come here to kind of state what we're looking to do. He mentioned that the ordinance was written typically to keep out certain businesses from going in that might degrade the community. But like I mentioned, we're very much a family-friendly, kids-oriented business. We don't do we don't do adult movies. We don't do anything like that. We're very focused on like the video games and things like that. And currently in Ypsilanti Township, there are no places where you can go to get those older video games or movies or Blu-rays at a discounted price, or a way for people to sell stuff they're not using to get cash. Just because we're bringing something new to the community, it's my first time at one of these meetings, not really sure 100% what I'm asking for, but Chris recommended just to come here to kind of state what we're doing to see if there's any way we could potentially open up and be approved in Ypsilanti Township. So.
Yeah, it's hard to answer that question without talking to Mr. Anderson about it, but our zoning ordinance, if I understand you, prohibits your use in that location. Is that what he said?
It prohibits a secondhand
Right.
merchant in that location. And there is a GameStop in that center, and in talking with the Planning Commission, I believe they are not classified as a secondhand merchant, and it didn't seem like people knew if we would or would not. And I know GameStop does sell pre-owned video games just like we do, but they're not classified as a secondhand merchant. So I was advised to kind of come here to get clarification on that, or figure out who I guess we would need to speak with to get that clarification.
So normally we get questions and then we follow up with
Okay.
answers on that. And Stan Eldridge is a trustee that sits on the Planning Commission, and we'll talk to the planning team that we have here because we can't give you an answer right now.
Right.
Normally, if it's against the zoning violation, it's against the zoning district. But if that's all we know right now. I don't have enough information to see
Okay.
why it is.
Okay.
But we can look into it, and I assume that the planning department, okay, y'all, okay, Mike is going to get your information, and we can follow up on it with our planning consultants.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really
Thank you
appreciate
for coming. Very
Thank you.
Madam Chair, what was the name of your company again, or your business?
It's called Disc Replay.
Disc Replay. Thank you.
Yes, I'm Reverend Linda Dominic, 2604 Blue Water Street, Ypsilanti, and I wish again to reiterate my opposition to the Nexus pipeline. The passage of time from the first time that we discussed this has not diminished the danger to our environment, nor the danger in which it puts our citizens. But there's one further piece that I didn't mention the last time. After attempting to contact me by mail and telephone with a certain degree of harassment, they sent a man to my door. And his parting words were, as he really obliged me to sign that consent form for evaluation of my property, was, this is coming and it's going to come whether you want it or not. And that's not my idea of democracy. Thank you.
I agree.
I'm Jennifer Spoor, 573 Kansas Avenue, and I came to reiterate my opposition to Nexus Pipeline, and I was wondering why we were going into legal negotiations if we're opposed to it. So that's why I was coming to the meeting, and I hope that I'll say what other folks said on the record, that I hope the board stays strong and the township elected officials stay strong in opposing this pipeline. Thank you.
And we discussed this in the work session, and the reason it's before us is that there's a legal strategy, if you will. We can say no, and then they'll go to court for eminent domain. Or we can attempt to negotiate and gather more information from them to use in court. So it's kind of a catch-22 because we did stand against it, but I am interested in getting as much information as we can from them because we found out a lot by Attorney Winters and Clerk Rowe and Treasurer Doe meeting with them. So we could just vote no and they'll go to court. It's a kind of a hard, tough decision. It's not easy because, like, a lot of us are against it. Mm-hmm. So, but you have to decide, sometimes legally what's the best approach. So we had quite a conversation in the work session. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm Marcia. I live at 436 Greenlawn Street. I have nothing brilliant to say, but I would like to stand here for the people that cannot be here. I'm thinking all the people that are, working their butts off and they can't make it here. They're too busy, too
Right.
tired. They're overwhelmed, too old, too young, too sick, the unborn. What we want to leave to them, and I get what you're saying. Go with your gut, because your gut is right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just asking, please, do not. Don't bend over, man.
Yeah.
Don't bend over for them.
No,
I know.
I agree.
I know.
We would never do that.
I know, but
Okay.
you never know.
No, we wouldn't.
Never say never.
I'll say never.
Hi, I'm Kurt from 41 Hillcrest Boulevard, and just standing with the rest of the folks here in the community, thanking you for the resolution that you did pass and standing firm and encouraging you to stand firm. And I understand you do have a difficult decision to make. And my personal feeling, and I could be wrong, is to just stand firm in opposition. Don't go into negotiations. It seems like as soon as you go into negotiations, you've kind of already given in. You'll learn more, but they'll still run over us. And, typically they run over us anyway, just kind of
Which
like
is what's going to happen, they say.
because like the state has passed legislation that, that makes this all not, gives us local folks very little control. However, we somehow have to buck the state and message the state, and that starts with the communities and the leadership in our communities. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you very much. Are there any other comments? Mr. Winters, do you have any?
Kathy Schoen, 14490 East On Avenue, Climax, Michigan. I'm glad this board is in place in Ypsilanti Township. I truly appreciate the fact that you've listened to people so well and that you are asking questions and that you're not, I think somebody used the word bending over. I'm here tonight to say thank you for your resolution that you passed in August. I'm also here tonight to ask you to not negotiate with Nexus. But I came in at the end of your last meeting, and I heard you discussing this. And I want you to know I'm a landowner in Augusta Township that would be impacted by the Nexus if FERC approves of it. I've known about it since August of 2014. And I have had Nexus call me many, many times, and we continue to refuse to let them survey our property, and we are not negotiating easement right-of-ways with Nexus. But that has not stopped them from calling us and harassing us, and the level of honesty is very low. They will say whatever they want to say to get what they want. So if you decide to negotiate, I personally think you're kind of negotiating with the devil. And the answers you get may not be the real answers to it. So Attorney Winters, hats off to you, because what you said and the little bit I heard, you have to be extremely careful. So that being said, be very, very vigilant with dealing with them. Just recapping, I'm going to try to make this really quick. First and foremost, reason to oppose the Nexus is because I don't think it's needed in Michigan or Ohio. It's the majority of the natural gas is going to be going to Canada, and it depends on where you're at and who's talking about Nexus, because some say it's a little over 50%, and I've heard people say they've been at meetings where it's over 75%, and some over 90%, and maybe it's all going. So make sure you're talking to the right person to get the right information. Michigan residents are, in essence, being asked to subsidize Nexus. Keith Matheny's June of 16 Free Press article said DTE is seeking a guarantee from state regulators that its gas and electric ratepayers would be responsible for the utility's gas supply cost from the Nexus pipeline if it proves to be unprofitable. And critics, including Bill Schuette's office, our Attorney General, say the proposal is a big loser for DTE customers because it's not projected to be profitable for decades. And then third, a new thing has arisen. Enbridge, a Canadian-based company, will soon be taking over Spectra if they haven't already. So we would have a private Canadian company along with DTE making huge profits at the expense of the United States citizens. This alone should have or may yet stop the Nexus, as eminent domain is not to be used for private gain. And let me remind you, in 2010, it was Enbridge who was responsible for the massive Kalamazoo River Dilbit oil spill. This spill was the largest and costliest inland spill in United States history at that time. Fourth, devastating economic impact on communities and individuals all along the path. Please visit Green Ohio's website, click on Nexus Pipeline, and look at their August 2016 entry. Green commissioned Cleveland State University to study long-term economic impacts of the Nexus. Their study showed Green that they would be better off without it. And remember, we have Lincoln Consolidated Schools and Belleville's Rawsonville School in the path of the Nexus pipeline. And people in Willow Run Sub, high population area, directly in its impact. That being said, I'm still going to stand here and ask you not to negotiate easement rights with them. And there's the biggest, most important reason for all of this opposition to the Nexus is climate change is real. and it's in overdrive. Polar ice caps are melting and oceans are rising. There's a huge increase in the intensity and frequency of storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, droughts, earthquakes. These disasters are happening because we have a world that is dependent on carbon-based sources of fuel. It is of utmost importance that we turn to renewable sources of energy. The 1.5 billion cubic feet per day of natural gas that would flow through the Nexus is not a clean fuel. It's carbon-based. Building pipelines like this Nexus will delay our transition to renewables. We're going to build this thing. We're not going to just turn to renewables in 5 years. This pipeline is going to be viable. Ask them for how long? 50, 60, 100 years? Along the Nexus route, communities and individuals like myself are refusing to negotiate easement agreements with Nexus. The City Council of Bowling Green, Ohio, at their December 26 meeting, by a 7-0 vote, voted against negotiating with Nexus. Councilman Gordon said, and I quote, "Overall, I think the pipeline does not serve the public interest. Bowling Green has a moral responsibility to stand up to the pipeline companies in court if necessary. If enough cities stand against eminent domain, we make their case harder to make," Mr. Gordon concluded. So in closing tonight, I and others have come before you to ask that you do the right thing, not just for the citizens you represent, but for all of us, for our world, for our earth. Please take a bold stand and refuse to negotiate easement agreements with Nexus.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other public comment?
I get to follow her. It's Andrea Pierce, 1188 Juno Road. I'm against the Nexus pipeline. I've been up here before. I'm against negotiations. When you negotiate, you allow them to manipulate how you think. You've said that you ask questions, they're not very forthcoming on answers, or it takes forever, you're getting parts of answers. To me, that's just shady. And if they're going to be like that now, what are they going to do when the pipeline's in? When it's dug up and all along the whole path, well, when we find out there's an issue. It's dangerous. We were talking about natural gas, and you said the last meeting they were petitioning to take out the smell. So we don't even know if there's a leak. When will we find out? It just seems like it's a bad idea to put something that dangerous in our beautiful lands. We need to stand up. We need to stand together. We'll back you. We're here. You're not standing up there by yourselves. You got all of us here. You know, if you need letters, emails, whatever, we're here to help you. You're representing us, but we're backing you. You are elected officials, and we need you as you need us. We're together.
Right.
So please do not negotiate. We don't want this in our area. We do not. And we'd rather go down fighting than be rolled over, by them. They're bullies. That's all they are. They're bullying everybody. All along the path, everybody's scared and bullied. Don't let them bully us. Mm-hmm. And you're not alone. We are here.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Thanks for coming.
Wow, this is really low.
I know. We got to work with that, don't we? You can take it out of the thing.
That's okay. There we go. My name is Jacob Morris, lifelong resident of Washtenaw County. I also go to school at Eastern Michigan, just down the road. I study environmental science and society. So in my studies and being involved in, I guess, the pipeline industry and trying to research what they do, I think we need to really look at the broader picture here. It's not just this pipeline that's going through aquifers that are going to be going through farming areas, which we will be then eating that food. Aside from that, aside from the wetlands that it's going through, People don't really realize this when it comes to climate change and fracking, but the amount of methane that's released in the fracking industry is way, way, way more impactful than carbon dioxide with their cars or, I guess, the greenhouse gas of carbon dioxide. When people think about climate change, they think about carbon dioxide reducing their carbon footprint. This is on a huge level with this methane that is released from the shale that is broken in the fracking process. I had the chance to listen in Philadelphia last year at the climate change march, the Clean Energy Revolution. I had several Ivy League professors speaking about the impacts of methane in our atmosphere and how it speeds up global warming. Whether you believe in global warming or not, methane in our atmosphere, it's not a good thing. It's just going to accelerate basically the trends that we've been seeing recently. So I strongly oppose it for many reasons, and also the public appeal or lack thereof. We just don't want it. I feel like it's just basically using us, and these resources are going to be imported partially anyways. So thank you for your time. Thank you for what you're doing, and again, strongly oppose Nexus.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Sarah Schilling. I'm a resident of 520 North Hamilton here in Ypsilanti. I'm also standing against the pipeline. I spent some time in Standing Rock, North Dakota, and I've personally had my safety feel threatened by these corporations. And so I really related to what she said. These corporations don't have respect for human lives, in my opinion, and they don't have respect for our communities and our land. I feel like going into negotiation with them is giving them more opportunity to disrespect you as a council and disrespect your opinion. If you oppose this, you're giving a united front with your community and also with your prior decision. It seems like the pipeline's happening no matter what, which is a very corporate mentality for all pipelines. So I think it's more important to stand with the people you're representing than to go into negotiations that are probably not going anywhere, where you're probably not going to get honest information, and where you're putting yourself in a position where you can feel endangered or further endanger your community. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any? Yep, okay.
Hi, my name is Ben Calhoun. I live at 2421 Lakeshore Boulevard. I'm obviously here against Nexus. I had like a million points, but I guess the one thing I could say is if you really want to negotiate with people who sat there in a boardroom, looked at a map, and then drew a line 400 feet from the schools in the area, even though they know the explosive range is 1,200 feet. They sat there, they looked at that map, and they said, that's fine with us if it goes right by those schools, because we're going to make a profit and we don't care. So please think about that. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Amber Avere, and I live at 1084 Livona in Ypsilanti. It's my first meeting here. Usually I'm working in Lansing, so I'm glad. I came today because I also oppose the Nexus pipeline, and I can understand using a strategy that might overall benefit the body before me as monetarily, but I'm worried that it's a waste of time if we actually oppose it. If it's opposing, why waste time when you could be spending it on other things that the township needs? And it's especially a waste of your time. I know that's rather limited. So I would ask that you oppose it entirely. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Any other public comment? Oh. Wait.
Me again. Tatiana Goodwin, 7330 Cayuga. That's the West Willow sub. I keep on hearing that it would be a good strategy to delay, but I have to wonder how confident they would be of succeeding in court. Vermin hate sunlight. Let's see what happens if a court hears of all the tales of harassment that have happened to all the citizens along. Let's see what happens when a court hears directly from citizens that have been lied to, given multiple answers that clearly are in contradiction with each other. Let's see what happens when they have to defend all of their answers that kind of serve their purposes, but clearly have no basis in reality. Let's see what happens. Let them go to court as far as I'm concerned. Please oppose this.
Thank you.
Hello, Patricia D. Miles at 7159 Lockmore, and I would hope that you would not negotiate with Nexus. Renewable energy is not a pie in the sky anymore. Iowa has 30% of their energy coming from renewables. We need to move in that direction for the sake of the planet. You got Native people in your township here. I'm Chippewa. We got Ottawa over there. And Native people have been here for 10,000 years, and the amount of destruction that's happened since Europeans came here is just devastating. And we need to turn it around. You know now that you really can't mess with Mother Earth. If not, life is not going to be able to be supported on this earth anymore if we continue in this direction. It's just, you know, you can look at the science, but I can see it every day. I mean, ever since, you know, I was little, just the changes that I've seen in the weather and the climate. I mean, that's shocking, you know. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming out.
Sorry. I got nervous and forgot something. It's Andrea Pierce, 1188 Juno.
We can't hear you.
Huh?
We can't hear you. I'm so sorry.
Okay, how was that better?
There you go.
Okay. It's Andrea Pierce, 1188 Juno. What I also wanted to say was that once you put a pipeline in, they don't come out. We got that one at the Straits of Mackinac, that 63-year-old pipeline that was supposed to only be 50 years. They snuck in on us, right? And they're not taking it out. We've got communities, we've got counties, cities, businesses, people all contacting the governor, contacting Enbridge, everybody that we can talk to, and they're not taking it out. And that's going to blow up at any time. Once they get them in, they do not come out.
Right.
And that's something to think about, you know, when we're going down, when you're thinking about negotiating. What are you actually negotiating for, you know? I mean, for time, just cut it. You know, it's just too dangerous to play with. It really is. Because once it goes in, they don't come out. And I'm done now.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
Good evening. James Billingsley, 6648 Burdock, Creekside West. For the past couple months, our house has not stopped shaking. So if you live near these construction zones, I wish you the best of luck, because you will find peace whenever you go to work, because your house vibrates. I've never noticed so many nail pops in my 2005 constructed home. I'll leave you this. I don't know anybody in Pennsylvania that hasn't died of cancer or a car accident because of all the fracking. Also, Delray, everybody in Delray has breathing problems because of all these industrial experiments. So I would ask you to oppose it as much as you can. Best of luck to you in federal court, but I do think you should play your part and oppose it. And when I look at the map, where it doesn't go is very telling, because they sized up the communities and they monetized the situation and took the risk. And they knew it could go through this area. So that's your role. Please fight it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments before we move on? We have the consent agenda, which has the minutes of the December 20th regular meeting, statements and checks, the December treasurer's report, and the annual treasurer's report for 2016.
Move to approve.
Support.
Motion no, support Jimmy Wilson. Discussion, any amendments or changes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We went through the supervisor, clerk, and treasurer and trustees report in the work session. Is there any additional general legal update, Attorney Wynn?
Nothing additional.
Under old business, we have the request for authorization for Township Attorney Doug Winters and Attorney Adam Cohen to enter into negotiations with Nexus for temporary and permanent easement agreements on township-owned property as requested by Nexus. This was tabled at the December 5th meeting.
Madam Chair, I would move to on table this item.
Motion Doe. Support Gerald Rowe. When we remove from table, we have a roll call vote. Heather?
Votes no.
Stan?
To remove from the table? Yes.
Okay. No problem. Trustee Eldridge?
Yes.
Ross Williams? Yes. Rowe?
Yes.
Doe?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
Stumba votes yes to remove the item from table. Now it's now properly before the board.
For purposes of discussion, I would move that we authorize the request to approve the request for authorization for the Township Attorney Doug Winters and Attorney Adam Cohen to enter in negotiations with Nexus for the temporary and permanent easement agreements on township-owned property as requested by Nexus. And I want to include the things that Doug suggested in the work session, that there'll be other items that we would negotiate, but for sure would be to specifically, regardless of whether the FERC approves the removal of the odorization, that we would make that a priority to have the odorization in the 7 miles, which is all in Ypsilanti Township, and that we would protect our FERC licensing for the hydro dam and to make sure that all the issues there are taken care of, and that we would particularly negotiate to make sure that any kind of the scheduling for the construction would not jeopardize the American Center for Mobility and any other issues to protect the residents in Ypsilanti Township.
Support.
Motion Rowe, support Doe. Is there discussion or comment? Yes. Trustee Eldridge?
Sorry. I sat and listened to a lot of the questions during the work session. They were very good. The one I had for Doug, who, so everybody in this audience knows I trust him eminently. We've known each other too long. I trust his opinion on a lot of things. Doug, the value that they are offering currently for the land, if we decided not to negotiate and they take it into eminent domain, have they set a price already for the value of that? So that's the minimum we would be looking at coming back.
Yeah, their offer, as you indicated, was it wouldn't go below that offer.
Right, right.
Obviously, it can go north, but it won't go south.
Yeah. Okay. And just as I said, I trust him intimately, but I have a lot of concerns with this. We may learn information. I don't think it's going to stop it. At some point, in my opinion, and it's only mine, maybe the only one, at some point a municipality just has to stand up and say no and take our chances from there. And I can't in good conscience vote to negotiate with people that I don't trust. So.
Other comment?
Madam Chair.
Trustee Wilson?
I just had one more question for Attorney Winters. You had mentioned if we allow the easement, this would actually be a violation of FERC licensing. Is that correct?
Well, the township, by virtue of having a hydro dam license, also is regulated by a different division of FERC. We cannot legally convey an easement to Nexus until that was pre-approved or authorization was received from the FERC division that oversees our license. So we cannot give them an easement anyways until we had an agreement, if there was one, as to what that was going to look like. So right now, that's going to complicate the schedule somewhat that they are trying to go forward with. So right now, without an approved easement agreement, we cannot petition FERC to ask them to approve that request because we've not yet had a meeting of the minds with the party asking or making that request. So the answer is we can't do it right now under any circumstances, and we can only make that request if there was an agreement or if they go to court and force the township to file the application through a court order. So I would just say right now, if I can, Madam Chairperson, that I don't want anybody to, in the audience, that's somehow confused, I know you're not, negotiations with any kind of agreement to bend over or to give Nexus a blank check right now. I've told the people from Nexus on different occasions that, while we may have been born at night, it wasn't last night. We're fully aware of what's going on here with the Nexus situation, and we're also fully aware right now that once they get the certificate, if they get the certificate from FERC, there probably won't be any more knocks on the door because that time period will be over and they'll go out to court and they'll start lining up these quick take in regards to these properties. And then the only argument you'll have, as well as the township, is what's the compensation? What's it worth? And you can argue about that. In the meantime, there's some serious, and I know that what I heard tonight also kind of reconfirms that. There's a lot of serious environmental impacts here that we're trying to, at least right now, get our arms around because there has been somewhat of a roughshod over those concerns at the federal and state level. Obviously, if the township had the ability to say no to the Nexus pipeline in its entirety, it would already have done so because we oppose the Nexus pipeline as a board, as other communities have. But at the same time, there is a responsibility here that goes beyond just the saying no, because there is environmental impacts, and if they actually are successful in getting that waiver of the odorization, that does a lot of potential harm down the road, if not so much if, but when there is a rupture in that pipeline. So there's a lot of things right now that they've not disclosed at the beginning of the process that we're now trying to get our arms around those issues in a very, very short time period. But I would not want anybody, regardless of how the board votes tonight, and to leave this boardroom with the impression that somehow negotiations is somehow going to be equivalent to a non-conditional surrender. We have, I can tell you from the letters I've written to them and the conversations I've had, that they know exactly the township's concerns on these environmental issues, and they've been very reluctant and begrudgingly coming forward with information. But I will say right now that the information we're getting is going to have some validity in regards to how the community down the road is going to be shaped, because we also have right now the Center for the ACM project, American Center for Mobility, and that is another project that we cannot afford to have this pipeline have a negative impact upon. They're doing negotiations with Nexus because they're trying to make sure they protect that pipeline, or they protect their property as it's developed into what's going to be a world-class automotive center for automated and connected vehicles. And if we're not at the table in negotiations with them, the pipeline is going to go through the township. It's also going to go through some of your properties, as well as the Center for American Mobility and other parts of the township. So we at least have to be a good partner also with other people, including residents, property owners, business owners, and everyone else, because together in those negotiations, that's where we're going to have the most potential impact. But again, it would be naive for anyone to at least think right now that we're naive and thinking that who we're dealing with. I know that when people are not being honest and transparent, and again, we're very, very aware of all those issues. But at the same time, I don't think I would be doing service to the township board right now to tell them right now that they're, I'm not saying we're going to stop this project. That's not what the negotiations would ever be framed to try and do. But there are issues here right now that we have a right to know in regards to the environmental impact upon the species, wildlife, upon our FERC license, upon the water, going under the Huron River, all those things that once those are gone from us, I won't get a chance, or the board won't get a chance to weigh in on those issues. So, again, we've looked at this and we've opposed it, and we're also going to take the board will vote on what to do. But I want no one to leave here tonight thinking somehow that negotiations would ever be construed by this board as being one that would be equivalent to basically unconditional surrender. In fact, if anything, the real work would actually begin with them at a point that I may get access to information that I may not otherwise get when you go to court and all they want to argue about is the value of the land. The value of the land is secondary to the township's interest. The township board is not for sale in regards to compensation as far as that goes. We know that the value of this property is worth much more than what they've offered, but that's not the impetus behind the township board's being a stakeholder in this process. Is to protect the environment, protect the future, at the same time hold them accountable. And those are pretty lofty goals. At the same time, I've been, since November, trying to deal with some of these individuals. And so, the board will decide which way to go from here on out, and as far as that goes. But again, it should be clearly stated right now that we've been going in this with our eyes wide open, not on their timetable. Our demands are still out there in regards to what we are expecting them to produce. Whether they will or not remains to be seen. But again, this has been one that's been a very, very grueling process. They kind of timed it during the holidays when everybody shut down except for us, I believe, in regards to communicating with them. But, everything that you're going through as an individual, we've gone through as a collective body. And I can definitely understand the frustration because we've seen it up close and personal as well. But at the same time, there's going to be a lot of pieces here that are going to be impacted by what they do. And I would rather be in a position of looking across the table at someone and asking those questions than for someone to say to me later on, it's none of your business, I don't have to give it to you. So that's where I think the struggle is. Try and figure out, again, negotiations does not mean you're going to get the easement. It means you're going to have to negotiate and show good faith. But at the same time, there is information out there that we as a township board have already received that I think is going to be helpful. There's more information that I believe would be, to the township's long-term interest from an environmental and from a developmental standpoint. But, we've probably done more already. The many communities have in trying to put the resources into getting the information. I mean, I know Bowling Green's had some second thoughts about some of the things I've talked to down there about now they're not going to be in a position to negotiate moving that pipeline away from the water supply source down there. So there's other issues that get impacted, and I just, there's a big picture. It's a balancing act, but again, nobody's going to bend over. Nobody's ever bent over in terms of we fought an awful lot of battles over the years, going back with the General Motors in 1992, and with every bank in the United States over what they did to our township neighborhoods in regards to when the housing meltdown occurred. This township board sued every bank in the United States at one time or another of what they did to our community. So we're not intimidated by Nexus, but at the same time, I've always tried to at least advise the board to look at all the different issues, and whatever the board decides is what I'm going to do. But I want to make it quite clear that this is not the approach that any of us at the township board take. We take it very, very seriously, and we understand the resolution that was passed. And some things are beyond our control. And some things that we can control, we try to effectuate, and the things we can't control, we have to, like you, sometimes wait for another opportunity. But I just wanted to express that right now to the board because they've put a lot of hours into reading the material that I've acquired. And I don't want anybody to think somehow that they would not take the concern seriously or that they would not simply follow through on a mandate of the township board, be it a previous board, nonetheless. So that's kind of like what I wanted to at least make everybody aware of. And, whatever the board does is what I'll do to make sure that your interest, their interest, the township's interest as a whole are going to be protected. It won't stop due diligence. It may take it to a different direction. I don't know. But we'll just have to wait and see and do what's best for the community because we have too many things at stake here to let Nexus or anyone else to run roughshod over the community. And we'll fight the good fight. We always have. And we're going to keep on doing that. And with your support and everything, we can share information and do that in a very, very cohesive fashion. So I just wanted to express that because I want to make sure that there was some kind of release for some people that may not be from the township and come to a meeting and may not know all the history of the township board over the last 25, 30 years. It's one that was very, very vigorous, we've been on the cutting edge on these issues long before any other community out there takes a stand. So we'll continue to do so, well, as the board does. We'll continue to follow through on whatever mandate or direction they give us.
Mr. Winters, I have, who is Adam Cohn?
Adam Cohn is an eminent domain attorney. He's a person.
Eminent domain attorney, okay. And have you discussed with him preliminarily where we're at and he's recommended? Is he recommending that? Because we've never been through eminent domain, so 28 years, it seems like we would have experienced that, and we haven't. So this is the first time. When you go to court for eminent domain, it's only about price?
Compensation.
It has nothing to do with public purpose or health and safety?
Those decisions are made by other federal agencies. That's why, FERC has control over this pipeline issue. So some of the information we have probably received or not is not the information that is normally going to be available during an eminent domain proceeding. The Constitution makes it quite clear you cannot take property without fair compensation. So if they take the property, they got to compensate. And so there's a lot of things that go into the compensation. They get more narrow as you go into the federal court system right now. I'll give you an example right now. We don't know exactly, and knowing Nexus, again, they may say we'll be out of your township by June 30th, okay? But if they're not out of our township on June 30th, how does that impact other parts of the township that are trying to develop, i.e. ACM, during that same timeline? So there's got to be built-in guarantees on anything that is being done out there. Going to court on value is not going to broaden some of these conversations about other things that are important or as important or are going to be relevant to the conversation. So but in terms of what, to answer your question, again, maybe more bluntly, is that normally when you go to court on eminent domain, it's what's the value of the property that's been taken under the auspices of the federal government, which in this case is transferred from FERC down to a pipeline. I don't believe in it. None of us believe in it. It does sound very much un-American, and it sounds at times very much anti to our democratic ideals. But at the same time, that's a fight that the Congress and the state legislatures and everyone else above me has already made a decision that they don't agree with, that we don't agree with. So at this point in time, we can, you have to deal with the hand that we have. Doesn't mean we give in, but it means right now you have to at least make, yourself aggressive in regards to what it is they're asking us and making sure we don't have an unintended negative consequence by not doing something. There's always two kinds of consequences I've seen over my career. There's an intended consequence that you can pretty much predict is going to occur. There are unintended consequences that you cannot always predict but are going to occur nonetheless. And so some of these are going to be intended consequences. Some are going to be unintended. But unless you're there at the table to hear it and witness it, it makes it more difficult to do it in a setting when the only question is, how much is your property worth? Well, how do I put a price on things that may get negatively impacted via a development project that does have a lot of purpose for this township's future? So those are the concerns I have. Those are the concerns that I know the ACM has. Those are some of the other concerns that property owners have. I've talked to some property owners, and they have negotiated, very high dollar amounts over what they were initially offered. And right now they're trying to grab as many easements as they can before eminent domain comes along, because once eminent domain comes along, they're not going to be discussing these, they won't be having these conversations anyway. So I don't know how close they are to getting it. They keep moving the ball down the field. They first say December, then they say January. Now they're saying possibly February. But I do think it's going to happen at some point in time in the next 30 days. And but I do have a concern about this authorization and their waiver. And I wish that we could have been made aware of that long before we became aware of it, because they filed their petition seeking a waiver over a year ago. We didn't know about it. And I don't think other people knew about it, because if they did, they would have brought it to our attention. But we found out about it and got the data. I disagree with it. And so we think we can at least make that a condition in our negotiations. Where they don't agree to it, then fine. We don't agree with it. But we got to try to at least do what we can to protect the community around here. And I believe the authorization is a vital part of that process. And so does the Sierra Club, because they've also weighed in on that issue as well. They don't agree with the pipeline either. But they also do agree that they should have to authorize it if they're going to have a pipeline. And so those are, I think right now we're probably the only community left standing that's made that line in the sand about the authorization. Nobody else has brought the issue up. No other communities brought it up. And of course, we're the ones that are mostly affected by it. But so we have to bring it up. But at the same time, whatever direction it goes, I'm more than willing to keep on going in the way that's going to protect the community. And so, but I just want to make it clear right now that we're not babes in the woods. We know who we're dealing with, and we know the lack of transparency, and we know the kind of struggles that we're going to face. And so it may be short-lived, I don't know. But at the same time, for the last 2.5, 3 months, we have lived with this pretty much around the clock, and we're much more involved, much more aware of some of the things than we were, say, back in August, and when they had a public hearing down there in Tecumseh. So they have not been forthcoming, and we know that. And will they be more forthcoming in the days ahead? Probably not. But at the same time, if I can obtain information that can be of use to the community, whether it's in a court case or not, that's what I think I have been trying to do. But whatever the board decides to do is fair, and we'll go forward there. But keep on communicating with our board. The concerns you have, information you gain. We don't always get the same information, so your experiences are going to be valuable to share with us by email. And I think that would be important to keep on communicating with the board regardless, because at some point in time, you never know what kind of informational piece can be relevant until you get into more of a legal context. So please keep on sharing your concerns with the leadership over the board, because they get filtered down to the rest of us. And sometimes what you may not think is important becomes very important. The one gentleman who left, I believe, that talked about his house shaking all the time and everything. He may have said that before. I'm not sure I've heard that before, but that's important to know in regards to what's going on here, in regards to the time of construction that's allowed. We do have requirements in regards to when you can have equipment, when you can operate, hours, things of that nature. So all that information is really kind of coming to us fast and furious. And so we need to keep on filtering that information to the board, because that allows us some degree of I don't want to say leverage, but it does allow us the ability to effectuate our permits at some point in time. They will have to get permits to build in this township, and the more information we have, the better it's going to be in regards to those type of impacts. It really helps a lot.
Thank you. Clerk Rowe?
Yeah, I just wanted to say for the record that I'm not sure I can speak for all the board, but I know I can speak for myself, that probably feel as strongly against this pipeline as I did against stopping the incinerator that Imbotech was trying to put in. And I know that we dragged that out through courts and stuff long enough, to that, a lot of people gave their life. We lost a lot of good friends in that, decade of struggles. And a lot of you some of you that are here, we actually became friends with you through that fight and stuff. But I also know that I just have this thing about, as long as, I think it came from my mom, as long as you can keep every door open to keep working and pushing to get more, that in my mind is a good thing. And so if we vote no not to allow negotiations, because negotiations is just that whatever happens there, whatever our attorneys can get or can't get, if there is something that they think is worthy to bring back to this board or whatever it is, there's going to be another round, and you all get to come here again if we get to that point. And maybe they won't get to that point. Maybe there won't be anything worth bringing back. I do think that there will be, but just because I know how tenacious Doug Winters is and the things that we got. Like General Motors, we lost that huge fight, but we also gained a huge thing when we took them out and we sued General Motors. And what we won was the right to negotiate when people come in for tax abatements. We can ask for jobs now. We can say you got to provide benefits, and we get to do that. So we changed the state legislation. Was it enough? No. Was it terrible what General Motors did? Yes, to move this great facility away. And I think the same thing is true in this fight that we're in. The decisions that are made were political decisions, just like we found at Imbotech when they changed the rules and we didn't have a seat at the table as a local community to say where they can locate, in toxic waste dumps and incinerators. And that's another struggle that we're all part of, right now, and what it is that we're doing when we elect folks who support environmental issues and causes throughout our state and our nation. And so we can continue on that fight. But, it's a hard decision. In some ways, it's not hard for me because it's easy just to say, no, forget it, let's just go. That's the easy part, and you all love us forever. We'll get accolades for that. The hard part is knowing that it's really going to probably really tee off some people here if the board does vote that way, and maybe you'll never, ever forgive us. Maybe you'll never vote for me again. Or whoever votes for it. So that's the hard part. The easy part would make you happy, and you always vote for us because we are political animals up here. But we get elected to do what we think is the best, and I don't think we lose anything by saying Doug and this guy named Adam, which I understand is like the eminent, one of the one of the top eminent domain attorneys in the nation, and I'm sure through that process, because he's involved in negotiating, whatever he can get and out of that. If it's anything at all, then we can maybe have some say. I talked to a resident, I don't remember who it was today on the phone, who said, don't trust them, and I don't for a second, and I think you heard clear from Attorney Winters. But I think one of the things, too, is like they said a lot of landowners, they promise all this, and they get their little agreements all drawn up, and they don't do a dang thing. And then the landowner, of course, has no money to go to court to fight it. And my first response was, well, that won't happen here. If we get that far, because I know we do that with developers and we do that with everybody else, you will put the money on the table that says that you will do the landscaping that you promised to do and put the soils back. There will be money up front, if we ever got that far. There's just a lot of experience and history of, we've had developers years ago when Brett and I were first on the board in the 80s. I remember apartment complex that walked away, Cardinal Industries walked away. We learned from those that you make the developers and the businesses, whoever, you don't take anything for granted, and you make the cash get on the table for what they say that they're going to do. But I think the most important thing for me, because I have complete faith that they're going to get the permit and they're going to get the right. They told us they've never been denied a right to not put the odor in. And so I don't know anything in the political climate that's changed. Maybe it has. I hope that that's wrong. I know they're going to do that. And we're the only community on that entire pipeline where that's required, 7 miles, because it's the most dense area that they're going through, next to West Willow, next to our northern folks that live off of Michigan Ave, those highly dense neighborhoods and stuff. And so to me, if we can negotiate, even after they say, no, you don't have to, and say that's the only way you get a deal in Ypsilanti Township, we will have protected generations on down the road for the safety, because they're getting the pipeline, everybody, and I'm all about taking a stand. I've done it a million times in my history, whether it's in the labor movement or whether it's on environmental issues, but if we can get something more, and I would at least like to just be able to allow Doug and Adam to go and see what they can do. And I would like to amend my motion to include that we contact Senator Peters and Senator Stabenow and Congressperson Dingell to ask them, as Doug had suggested in the work session, to ask them to join us in the fight to see if we can have input on that odorization at this time, and also to allow technical expertise to be utilized if Doug and Adam see fit, and to keep the board, because we know that that's going to happen. They're going to bring up stuff that we don't know about. We need our own expertise. So if I could offer that as an amendment to my original motion.
I'll support that, Karen.
Thank you.
All right. Trustee Stumbo. I'm sorry, Supervisor Stumbo.
Ross?
Yeah, thank you. I understand, and I really do appreciate Attorney Winter's Tillis' pursuit of trying to get answers from Nexus. The emails and the various communications that he has sent to the board, I can tell that he has done his due diligence in regards to answers for the Township Board and Township residents. However, I do have questions in regards to the push of this timeline. I'm wondering, and I'm very concerned, why? After a 2-year, I guess, known that this was going to come here, that they're taking November, December, and January as time to try and push this to go on. The lack of transparency, especially with the issues with FERC and the protected wildlife, and then, now saying they waited until the 16th to answer a question that was sent to them on the 10th of January, and furthermore is a problem to me. It seems as if Nexus and ACM, I should say Nexus, is putting the ACM project at a bind for the rush. And to me, Nexus have yet to prove that this pipeline would have any benefit at all to our township, period. And lastly, I do care about the wildlife. I do care about the fact that the area near the dam is protected. I do care about the fact that we have this pipeline going through not only residential communities, but also through schools. And I do truly care about the issues of negotiations, but on this one, I believe that a stand needs to be taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. So if the motion is to approve and authorize Township Attorney Winters and Attorney Adam Cohen to enter into negotiations with the long conditions that Clerk Rowe had put on it. Right. Turn on your little mic.
Authorization issue to be addressed, to make sure that the FERC licensing and doesn't affect our operations or losing our license for the hydro dam, that they don't jeopardize the schedule for probably the largest economic development issue in front of the township, the American Center for Mobility, and that we allow, if there's technical expertise needed, that be allowed, and that we contact all of our federal legislators, both Senator Peters or Senator Dingell, Senators Peters and Stabenow, and Congresswoman Dingell, to add support to see if there's intervention we can have in the whole organization issue at this time.
Okay. Everyone understand the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Aye. The motion fails 2-5. So we're not entering negotiations with the Nexus Pipe. The first item under new business is budget amendment number 1. Clerk Rowe?
I have a budget amendment to offer to amend the 2017 budget for the first time to increase the general fund by $37,689 to $8,326,495 and approve the line item changes outlined, and that's for the later agenda item for creating the assistant IT manager. And $20,000 to help with this wonderful sound system. Thanks, Larry. Move to increase environmental services fund budget by $1,149 to $2,618,578, and approve the line item changes as outlined, and that's for PTO payout, time paid out. Move to increase the law enforcement fund budget by $3,263 to $7,024,967, and approve the line item changes as outlined, and that's also for PTOs. And then to increase the compost fund budget by $1,149 to $456,534, and approve the line item changes as outlined, and that also too is for PTO. I would so move the budget amendment.
Support.
Motion Rowe, support Doe to approve the budget amendment. Are there questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is Resolution 2017-1, approving the refunding contract for YCUA bonds maturing 2018 to 2032. There are 2002 sanitary sewer system number 3 bonds that are dated November 26, 2002, and water supply system number 6 bonds dated February 6, 2007, and not to exceed the principal amount of $7.5 million for, what's that, 217?
That's what they're called. It'll be $7.5 million for 2017 refunding bonds. Yeah.
$7.5 million for 2017 refunding bonds.
I have a resolution offer 2017-01 to approve the refunding contract. Minutes of a regular meeting of the Township Board, the governing body of the Charter Township Ypsilanti and the County of Washtenaw, State of Michigan, held on the 17th day of June 2017, held a resolution whereas it deemed necessary to refund certain maturities of the Ypsilanti Community Utilities Authority 2007 Water Supply Number 6 bonds and refunding bonds, the prior bonds, so as to produce interest savings to the Township. And whereas the refunding contract has been prepared between the Township and the YCUA, Ypsilanti Community Utilities Authority, provide the refunding of certain of said prior bonds, and whereas pursuant to the refunding contract, YCUA plans to issue refunding bonds designated 2017 refunding bonds, Charter Township Ypsilanti, the refunding bonds, and whereas the governing body has carefully reviewed the proposed refunding contract and finds that it provides the best means for accomplishing the necessary savings in the Township. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the refunding contract described in the preamble to this resolution is approved, and the supervisor and township clerk of the Township are directed to execute and deliver the contract on behalf of the Township. 2, the supervisor, the Township clerk, and the Township treasurer each is hereby authorized to execute on behalf of the Township any closing document or certificate as may be required by YCUA or the purchaser of the refunding bonds. The Township hereby covenants to take all action within its control to the extent permitted by law necessary to maintain the exclusion of interest on the refunding bonds from gross income for federal income tax purposes under the Internal Revenue Code of 1986, as amended. The code, including but not limited to actions relating to the rebate of arbitrage, earnings, and expenditure investment of proceeds of the refunding bonds and monies deemed to be proceeds of the refunding bonds. 3, the supervisor, the Township clerk, and the Township treasurer is each individually hereby authorized and directed to approve the circulation of a preliminary official statement and a final official statement describing the refunding bonds and execute a final official statement on behalf of the Township. 4, the Township shall enter into an undertaking for the benefit of the holders of beneficial owners of the refunding bonds, the undertaking, and shall comply with the requirements of Rule 15C2-12 of the Securities and Exchange Commission regarding continuing disclosure. The supervisor, the township clerk, and the township treasurer each is authorized to execute and deliver the undertaking on behalf of the township. All resolutions and parts of resolutions in conflict with this resolution be, and the hereby and same hereby are repealed. I would so move adoption of resolution 2017 number 1.
Support.
Motion Rose, support Eldred. Can we have a presentation on it?
Good evening. Tom Coles with Miller Canfield. I drafted the resolution. Sorry it was so long. So for the purpose of the board, YCOA has issued bonds on behalf of the township to finance various improvements within the township, some water supply, some sanitary sewer. And back in 2002 and 2007, we issued bonds to finance those projects. In 2007, there was a new money, so we issued bonds to finance a new project plus refund some 2002 bonds. And when I say refund, what we're basically doing is we're taking out existing bonds and putting in lower interest rate bonds to take their place. So those 2007 bonds are now, can be refunded again. So we can take advantage of low interest rate markets and basically take out those existing bonds and put in lower interest rate bonds in their place to produce savings to the township and the users of the system, the water and sanitary sewer system. So the resolution approves a refunding contract. So YCOA is actually the issuer of the bonds, so they'll issue bonds out to the market, but the township is ultimately responsible for repayment of the bonds through the use of the systems. And so this resolution authorizes YCOA to go forward, and the YCOA board still needs to consider a resolution themselves at their meeting next week. But this authorizes them to move forward to consider whether they should issue these bonds. The market's very volatile, so this doesn't require YCOA to issue the bonds, and if it's determined that the interest rates aren't favorable enough to produce enough level of savings, then the bonds won't be issued at all, and the resolution basically just goes away. So there is a kind of minimum level of savings that would want to be achieved before YCOA would proceed in actually issuing the bonds and incurring significant costs associated with that. So to the extent we start marketing the bonds and it determines that the rates aren't there, basically the deal just sits on the back burner and may never be brought forth again. And the only cost that would potentially be incurred is if they actually went out and got a rating on the bonds from a rating agency. That cost would be incurred, but there would be no other costs associated with the transaction at the time.
Other questions? I have just a couple. The resolution didn't say what you just said, that if the rate is not favorable, then we will not proceed. So can we add that, or?
Well, that's actually in the YCOA's resolution with respect to a level of savings. But
Why, okay, I was just wondering why should it not be in ours as well, since it's our full faith and credit?
I mean,
What do you,
we could add it in.
or just
Now
put
the
it
question becomes at what level of what. A lot of times what we want to do is, the township has hired a financial advisor too to assist it in determining whether they're good rates and it's appropriate time to proceed. So the question becomes, at what point do you put a threshold in there, or, I mean, obviously we wouldn't proceed if there weren't any savings at all, because that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So the question then becomes, at what point do you want to put a dollar amount or a percentage in there? Usually when we're looking at transactions, most financial advisors will say, you want at least 3% savings. The current rates that we've been looking at now that Paul Stauder from PFM has provided would have savings in the 6.5%. That's not the interest rate, but that's an overall savings, which is about approximately $500,000 in total for the project, for the refunding of the bond. So the question becomes, if you add something like that in, what threshold do you put in there?
well, fortunately, there's 2 board members on ECA board.
Exactly right. And
But
that is kind of the purpose, is that you have representation on the YCOA board. So we wouldn't proceed without you being comfortable in that regard.
So the YCOA resolution, is it going to be 3% savings, or what's the number in the YCOA resolution?
It is 3% savings, yes.
So is that what's in the documents here?
That's that's not in the refunding contract, but that's actually in the YCUA board resolution.
No, it just says that the savings is 515,000.
Paul's projection. That's just an estimate right now. So that's just information purposes. Yeah, and obviously we wouldn't know what that is until you actually got into the market. So the market can change significantly, better or worse, between now and when we actually get into the market, which isn't until the later part of February.
Yeah, I was just reading the savings is approximately $500,000, you said, and I didn't know what interest rate you based that estimate on.
So Paul based that on what he believes the current market is. Again, but that's as of today versus...
Which is 6%, you think?
No, what he's saying is that the overall percentage of savings, not the actual, would be about almost 6.5% to 7%, or $500,000 if you convert that to dollars.
He did it conservative because he's got only 4%. Am I understanding that right?
No, you are, but it gets complex when, even though the rate, it's the yield versus the rate. So the rate might be 4%, but it yields something lower than that, which still produces savings.
Okay.
So I don't want to get into fuzzy math, but that essentially, if you're just comparing rates to rates, they may look relatively the same, but the yields are much lower, so then they'll produce those savings.
Well,
that's estimated right now, so
you're hoping the rate's higher,
until
right?
we actually get into the market to determine that.
You're hoping right now the rate's higher than that.
We all are.
I mean, right now it is, right? Or not?
I think that's the current rate right there.
Okay.
Yep.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I was just curious about what the date of the Yucca board meeting is and why their resolution wouldn't be proposed and passed before the board votes on this decision. And that could be an ignorant question on my behalf, so if it is, I apologize.
No, there's just really kind of timing issues, so
They come here first. Yeah.
Right, we typically come to the township board first to make sure that the township wants to proceed with the actual refunding, and then it goes to the YCUA board almost sequentially as to when they meet next. So they meet next on the 25th of January. So that's when they would consider the resolution and approval of the refunding contract.
Yeah.
Because they can't technically do it unless we do it.
Correct.
And Clerk Roll?
So just the technical process, so once it gets through Yucca and everything, so you guys get on the phones or look at the rates and
so here's what happens.
And then you ask Jeff if that's okay. What do you think? And then you call the chair.
So here's what happens is that if YCUA approves the resolution, then we actually draft the offering documents to go out into the market and have set up a conference call with a rating agency to determine what they would rate the bonds. And again, that's a rating based on YCUA and the township together. So that's a really nice, strong rating, by the way, too, which is great. So once we get the rating, before a document's actually put out in the market, the township's financial advisor, Paul Stouter at PFM, will actually look and see what do we think the market looks like now. And before we actually go into the market, they would figure out with Hutchinson Shockey, who's the anticipated underwriter of the bonds, Mike Gormley, who's worked with the YCUA before in refunding bond issues, they'd figure out what does our level of savings look like, and they would have discussions with Jeff, and we'd have discussions with the board, with YCUA board, as to what do we think is a good level of savings. The resolution will provide a required minimum 3% net present value savings. The bond authorizing resolution that YCUA considers, that's stated in their resolution. So they couldn't approve an issue that actually had savings of less than that dollar amount, or less than that percentage. But there may be kind of in someone's own mind of, well, we'd really like to get to 4% or 5%. That's a conversation. It's a discussion that takes place when you get near to actually incurring costs, basically, and actually signing up documentation. There's no guarantee, there's no deal to sell bonds unless the YCUA is comfortable. And again, you have two representatives on the YCUA board as to the level of savings that you're comfortable with.
And we have new board members, so it's good to explain this.
Sure.
It helps us as well.
Supervisor.
One of the
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, wait, thank you. Just real quick, is it normal, because I don't know, I'm new, so is it normal not to put the, I guess you say, the minimum rate of cost savings inside of this resolution for the board also, as well as it will be inside, I'm assuming, the Yucca resolution?
It is in the YCUA, the Yucca
Yeah.
resolution. Since we've drafted these resolutions for decades for the township, it is normal that we don't include it in the township resolution. Again, YCUA has been created by the township and the city, so you have representation on those boards. But again, as I said, there is a threshold already set forth in that resolution, and there is dialogue that takes place as to what would appropriate levels of savings, and we already had some of the communication before even bringing this to the board through the supervisor and clerk's office as to these questions too.
One other question, how much, so if you go out, what's the cost of finding out what the rate is?
So the rating agency fees are typically in the ballpark of around $10,000.
Okay. And the savings of 4%, the number in here, does that include the refunding and
yeah, so that's
underwriting?
exactly, that's net of all costs. So that's right. So that takes into account all the costs associated with actually issuing the bonds.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Clerk Rowe, when you do write the letter to them, if you could just say 4% or the number that was in here.
Well, that was just projection. It's really not in the resolution of the contract, so
Correct.
I don't know if that would be legally appropriate.
I mean, again, that was just the estimate as of right now as to what they thought the savings would be.
I always ask that question, so I don't know why Paul doesn't always send it. Because I always say when I get him, I always send an email saying, hey, can you send us this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And then he puts together the projections.
Yeah, I would like to say based on these projections. That's all.
But again, you're not, I mean, the question becomes, those are projections, right? So they're not the actual dollars. They're not the actual savings yet. To the extent we want to put a threshold in the township resolution, we can, but it is already in the YCUA resolution, so
it wouldn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt. We just want to have the clerk come up with the language. That's fine. Yeah.
If we could include that in the resolution, that would be greatly appreciated. If Rowe, you're the maker of the motion.
I don't have no idea.
At the bottom. Just put it at the bottom.
Can you say how?
I can provide you the language if you want. We can actually add it to. We can add it to.
Lisa, can you just read it to me? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Because we had the Yucca, the YCUA one, I just didn't put in the packet. So whatever it says, I'll just change this one. How about this? Who made the motion? I'll make an amendment to the motion. I'll make an amendment to the motion that we have the resolution reflect exactly the same as what's in the YCA motion for the 3%.
I mean, it would really be best if we didn't include it in the township resolution and just keep it in the YCRA resolution, because the contract itself authorizes issuance of the bonds, and I just think that including it in the township resolution complicates it, because you're authorizing the refunding contract. The refunding contract then authorizes issuance of the bonds. So they are slightly different things that we're authorizing here, and again, it's already in the YCUA resolution, so. I mean, I think the discussion is a good discussion and obviously Larry hears that message and the financing team hears the message of having the same level of savings, but it's already in the documents to that regard.
So how does it complicate it by adding it?
Well, because what you're saying is that, so are you approving the refunding contract subject to it producing 3% savings?
Just like the Yucca.
Yeah, but the YCUA resolution is actually describing issuance of the bonds as opposed to approving a contract. So there's two. This resolution is approving a refunding contract. That's its pure purpose, is to approve a refunding contract. The YCRA resolution has two purposes. It approves a refunding contract and it authorizes issuance of the bonds. And as part of its authorization to issue bonds, it authorizes the board or the YCUA chair and secretary to actually accept a bond purchase agreement but only to the extent it produces at least 3% savings. So the restriction on the savings is on the authorization of the bonds, not on the refunding contract.
Because
The
we're not
refunding
authorizing the bond.
You're not authorizing the bonds, you're authorizing
Not our
YCUA to go forward. Actually, now that I'm talking this through, where we may be able to put this is in the actual refunding contract. Look at the refunding contract. Where's my refunding contract? There it is.
Can we just add it to the motion?
I'm thinking we build it right into the contract. We just need to figure out where. Okay, so we have in the contract under, I don't know if you have the contract with you, but 3A says to carry out and accomplish the refunding in accordance with the provisions of Michigan law, the authority shall or has taken the following steps. A, the authority will adopt a resolution providing for the issuance of the refunding bonds in the aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $7.5 million. And I think we can include there, which includes a, minimum savings of at least 3% net percent. 3% of net present value savings. So build it right into there that the resolution includes that. So I think we basically include it in the refunding contract, because that's the contract between the township and YCUA, that says they'll adopt a resolution that authorizes bonds not to exceed $7.5 million and includes a savings provision of at least 3% of net present value savings.
Okay. Will you send a corrected copy to Clerk Rowe?
I'll send that corrected language to
That would be great.
And then I'll provide the same copy to YCUA for next week.
So that would have to be a
Well,
friendly amendment?
I'll just change the amendment.
Actually, it doesn't change the resolution. It just changes the contract that's
There you
approved
go.
by part of it.
Then it stays the same because the resolution approves the new
And
contract.
that was the intent, right. So you're just changing the contract.
It's a new contract. All right.
Do we need to, is it a friendly amendment?
Well, the amendment was approved the resolution, and the resolution says you move the contract. So
We have to change it.
the contract is, as read, is a $7.5 million with a savings of 3% on paragraph 3A, wasn't it? Yep.
At least 3%. Right.
At least 3%. Right.
Trustee Eldridge, you supported it?
Yes.
Is that acceptable to them?
Yes.
Very good. Now that it's properly before the board, any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution number 3 is Resolution 2017-02, Owners Dam Safety Program. Clerk Rowe?
Yeah, I'm still on. Taking my notes. Hang on one second. All right, Resolution 2017-02. Whereas the Charter Township of Ypsilanti in Washtenaw County currently holding a license with FERC to operate the Ford Lake Hydroelectric Project, number 5334, and whereas FERC requires the Charter Township of Ypsilanti to develop, implement, fund, and continue to support the Owner's Dam Safety Program per the FERC guideline for the project until such time that the Charter Township of Ypsilanti releases ownership of the project is no longer under the jurisdiction of FERC. And whereas the Owner's Dam Safety Program document clearly defines the responsibility of the Charter Township of Ypsilanti and its employees and consultants, and whereas the purpose of this resolution is not new to the Charter Township of Ypsilanti, but rather a rededication to dam safety and the responsibilities that come with owning the project, and whereas by the action of this document, the Charter Township of Ypsilanti is showing the commitment to FERC to operate a safe project prioritizing safety over other goals. And now, therefore, be it resolved that Charter Township Ypsilanti Board of Trustees acknowledges the owner's dam safety program to maintain compliance with FERC and define the role of the Charter Township related to the project. I would so move Resolution 2017-02.
Support. Motion Rowe, support Ross Williams. Discussion? It's the annual resolution that we're going to do for safety of our dam. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is request of Angela Burgess, Recreation Superintendent, to purchase a software update from RecTrack, which is a single source vendor, in the amount of $7,705, which is budgeted in line item 101-256-000-977-001.
So move.
Motion Rowe, support Doe. Is there discussion on this request? Angie's here. Yeah.
I just got up in case you had any questions. Angie Burgess, Recreation Services Manager.
So it updates the software so it'll better communicate with the drawer, the cash drawer, and all the other.
Makes our operation run much smoother.
And was recommended by our IT department, correct?
That's correct.
And it was budgeted for.
That's correct.
Any question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Angela. The next item is a request of Karen Wallen, Human Resources Generalist, for authorization to create an Assistant IT Manager position within the Teamster Bargaining Unit with proposed salary of $55,000 per year, and to waive external posting and fill the position internally.
So move.
Support.
Motion Rowe, support Doe. Hello, Karen.
Good evening. I apologize first before I say anything else. Did everybody get the draft job description that I forwarded out this afternoon?
Ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
I have copies. I have copies here if you didn't, and I apologize for the delay in getting that out to you. Back in 2015, as I mentioned in my memo, we were fortunate to hire David Maynard as our help desk specialist. That took quite a while for us to find someone. And since that time, David has actually continued his education and gained more knowledge, has been very useful to us, very professional, and
we love it.
The employees do. All the employees are very much in support of this. But just with the growth of the IT department and things, we've noticed that it's important to have that second person that knows how our systems run and can be there when the IT manager is out of town if something happens or is not available. So we went to bat and started with a job description and started talking with David. So I'm here to ask the board for approval to create this position. And I have been in touch with the Teamsters Union, as he is the only one who actually is going to hold the qualifications, that we waive external posting of the position and just award the promotion to David at a salary of $55,000 a year.
Are there questions from
Madam Chair? Just a question. I see that you'd be going into the Teamsters bargaining unit, which is fabulous. But I was just curious about if it's a new position, is that salary going to be a newly created salary within their collective bargaining agreement, or?
Yes.
Yes. And with that, would the candidate be superseding anyone else with the same? There's no one else that does the same job other than Travis, who
Correct.
I've been to your office. I can understand that you need help. So
there's no one else that would have the knowledge of our systems and programs.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Trustee Wilson.
So Karen, would we actually have three individuals in the IT department then? Travis, Dave, and
Becky. Is it Becky in IT?
Becky is in IT. We have a web position that is part of the IT department. At this point, we would not fill the help desk position that David is currently filling. That would be a position that we would leave in the Teamsters Union, but we would not fill it at this point.
Okay.
Good question.
I do now. So that goes into the question I had. Who's going to take those responsibilities then? Would that be David?
Yes.
Job description.
Yes. So he'll continue doing a lot of the same things he does in addition to adding additional responsibilities.
Okay. And if I could, I just found out something about David today. You served in the military for us? Thank you for your service. I just found that out today.
Yeah. And normally you don't vote for things because people change. So it makes sense to have, we need an assistant to Travis because he's the only one that has the codes to the kingdom, is what I was. So I know most organizations have a backup, and
It's good practice.
right, to have one.
Correct.
So that makes sense, but I really, really do appreciate all the great work that Dave has done and his patience with this and just his attitude is great, and it's helped Travis better communicate with us as well. So they're a good team right now.
That's absolutely right. Quality assurance specialist Robin Castle and I met with them the other day, and they both have lots of good ideas and things to even move us further.
Together,
so
yeah.
yes, together cooperatively. So
And I know when Travis goes on vacation, no one can do it. He has to do it. So it doesn't make sense. So, all right. We have a motion of support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is a request of Mike Radzik, OCS Director, for authorization to seek legal action, if necessary, to abate public nuisances for properties located at 1635 Wismer, 618 Bagley, 456 Hayes, 1715 Beverly, 2355 Wired, and 1711, 1731 Cadillac, in the amount of approximately $35,000, which is budgeted in line item 101-950-000-801-023.
Move to approve.
Oh, support.
Motion Doe, support Rowe. In our packet, I don't know if we want to show everyone read in the packet of all the and, our goal is always compliance, but people kind of ignore us, even though it's a public nuisance to the neighbors and to the community. So these items have been looked at in 2016.
Yes, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. And I also wanted to point out, we did not bring any nuisance abatement cases to the board for the fourth quarter of 2016. Not that we were necessarily holding these, but these were the ones where we could not get voluntary compliance, and there is no alternative but to ask to go to circuit court if it becomes necessary.
All right. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There's no other business. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion Doe, support Gerald Rowe. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.
Yeah, no problem. See you, Stan. Yep.
Well, you may have ended up going that way anyways. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Just turn it off.